If he loves me, he'll come back. Tan Songyun's tearful prayer in chapel caught on camera. The hospital halls were unusually quiet that morning. The rain that had begun at dawn still tapped relentlessly against the stained glass windows of the private chapel tucked deep within the south wing of the facility. It wasn't a place frequented often only by those desperate enough to seek something beyond medicine. It was here, away from the machines, the whispering nurses, the camera drones lingering outside, that Tan Songyun was seen alone, barefoot, trembling. Her long, loose hospital gown brushed against the cold floor as she knelt before the altar, her head bowed, hands clasped tightly, as if she were holding herself together. Her voice, though soft, echoed not in volume but in heartbreak. "If he loves me," she said, almost inaudibly, "he'll come back." A nurse paused at the doorway. She didn't mean to listen, but something about the sound of that voice, the weight of those words, froze her in place. What was meant to be a private moment had, by chance or fate, become something much bigger. And hours later, captured by the chapel's silent surveillance camera, leaked to a fan forum by an anonymous source, it would ignite a storm across social media. The prayer that shook a nation. Tan Songyun had been through the worst already. Or so everyone thought. From the harrowing car accident that left her bruised, bleeding, and rushed to emergency surgery, to the silent weeks in recovery where fans saw only generic updates and carefully filtered photos, her life had become a controlled narrative. One that kept the world at arm's length. But no PR team could prepare for what that video would reveal. The woman in that chapel wasn't an actress. She wasn't famous. She wasn't the picture of grace that the world was used to. She was shattered, and she wasn't hiding it anymore. Her whispered confessions inside that chapel gave the public their first raw glimpse into what had really been happening behind the hospital walls and in her heart. "I waited for him," she said through sobs. "I defended him. Even when people said he left, even when he didn't call back. I said he was just scared, that he'd come back. Why hasn't he come back?" It didn't take long for fans to connect the dots. Shu Kai, her once silent companion during recovery. The man who had shielded her from paparazzi, defended her at press conferences, and, at one point, sat by her hospital bedside for 9 days straight without leaving. But things had shifted. He hadn't been seen in over a week. There were whispers of a falling out. Anonymous insiders had spoken of a fight, a brutal one, where Shu Kai stormed out of her hospital room after a tearful argument. Now, hearing her confession, it seemed more than just rumors. "You promised me you wouldn't leave." Among her tearful words were lines that left even hardened skeptics in stunned silence. "You said I was safe with you," she cried. "You looked me in the eye and said, 'No matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere.' Was that a lie, Shu Kai? Or did I just believe in something that wasn't real?" The pain in her voice was unmistakable. Every pause, every catch in her throat, made it clear this wasn't a publicity stunt. This wasn't a woman playing to the camera. She didn't even know the camera was there. Some fans described it as the most honest 3 minutes of footage ever released in C entertainment history. Others weren't so kind. Critics accused her of emotional manipulation, claiming she was trying to guilt Shu Kai back into her life. But most people saw the truth for what it was, a broken girl crying for someone she still loved. Where is Shu Kai? Since the video went viral, Shu Kai's name trended for 14 hours straight. No official statement came from his agency. No posts. No pictures. Nothing. But sources close to the production team of their upcoming series revealed that he had taken a personal leave, citing medical stress. What that meant, no one could say for certain. However, someone inside the hospital confirmed that Shu Kai had, indeed, returned, just not to her room. He'd been spotted speaking with one of the hospital psychiatrists. Witnesses described him as disheveled, barely speaking, and at one point, crying uncontrollably in the staff break room. It was clear he was struggling. But why had he stayed away from Tan Songyun? Was it guilt? Was it fear? Or was he told to leave? Some fans believe it wasn't his choice. That he had been pushed away. He couldn't handle the guilt. A source close to the family finally broke their silence. "He blames himself for the crash," the insider said. "They were supposed to leave together that night, but she stayed back for a meeting. He got into an argument with the production team, and they were both stressed. He thinks if he had just gone with her, maybe the accident wouldn't have happened. He hasn't forgiven himself since. The detail lit up fan forums. Suddenly, Shu Kai's absence made painful sense. Songyun wasn't just praying for him to come back because she missed him. She was begging for the man who had disappeared inside himself. The man who thought he didn't deserve to stand beside her anymore. A private moment, a global reaction. Within 24 hours, the Chapel video had been translated into 18 languages. Subtitled versions were uploaded across platforms, Twitter, Weibo, YouTube, TikTok, with the hashtag #IfHeLovesMe trending at number 1. A-list celebrities started reposting it. Some praised her vulnerability. Others shared their own stories of waiting on love that walked away. And somewhere in the chaos, a photo surfaced. Blurry, taken from a nurse's phone. Shu Kai, outside the chapel, standing by the door, his hand on the handle. Watching. Listening. He didn't go in. That single photo broke the internet. He was there, one fan wrote. He heard everything. He just didn't know how to step inside. Songyun, I'm not strong right now. The next day, she finally posted. A handwritten note, posted to her studio's official Weibo, read. There are times when I've worn strength like armor. When I've smiled through blood tests, surgeries, gossip, and heartbreak. But I won't lie to you anymore, I'm not strong right now. I miss the people I thought I could lean on. I miss the future I thought we were building. But I'm still here. And I still believe in love. The post received over 6 million likes in 2 hours. A prayer answered. No one expected what happened next. That night, shortly after midnight, security footage once again leaked, this time from the chapel's west entrance. Shu Kai. Entering. Alone. No cameras. No managers. No PR team. Just him, holding a folded piece of paper, eyes red, hands shaking. He walked to the same spot where she had knelt 48 hours earlier. He sat down. What he said, no one knows. But Songyun's nurse later confirmed she didn't sleep that night. She was sitting by the window of her room, and when he returned from the chapel, he stood outside her door. He didn't knock. He didn't speak. But he stood there for 23 minutes. Maybe he was praying too. If he loves me, he'll come back, the moment that broke millions. The clock inside the hospital chapel had just struck 5:17 a.m. when Songyun collapsed to her knees before the altar. No script, no lights, no rehearsals. Just her. Crying. Praying. Begging. Outside the stained glass windows, the storm raged on. But inside, there was only the sound of her breath catching in her throat and the soft, choked words of a woman whose heart was breaking in real time. God, please, she whispered, eyes squeezed shut. If he ever loved me, just once, bring him back to me. The camera that caught her wasn't high-tech or meant for the public. It was a basic hospital security feed meant for safety, not confessionals. But that's what it became. A raw, unfiltered confessional by the very woman who had been silent for weeks. For fans who had only seen her through sterile updates and vague studio statements, the footage felt like a punch to the gut. Here was a woman reduced to nothing but emotion. Her voice shook with memories. Her fingers trembled as she clutched at her chest like she was physically in pain. I still set a place for him when they bring my breakfast, she said softly. I still wait for the door to open when the nurses walk in. But it's never him. It's never him. Every line she said, every silent pause, became a viral quote. Thousands of posts poured in under the hashtag #HeStillHasTheKey, referencing one of the most devastating things she revealed in the video. He has the spare key to my apartment. He knows the code to my gate. He knows where I hide my spare toothbrush. He still has it. I never asked for it back. I never changed the code. I was scared to. Because if I did, it would mean I gave up. She wasn't talking to an audience. She was speaking to the only person who wasn't listening, Shu Kai. A secret someone overheard. What made the video even more painful? The final minute. As she buried her face in her hands, her voice cracked, not just from sadness, but something deeper. Something that hadn't been said before. I didn't even tell him about the baby scare. About the nights I woke up bleeding and I thought I lost it all. I couldn't tell him. He was already carrying so much guilt. I didn't want him to break. Fans froze. Rumors had circulated weeks earlier, whispers of an unconfirmed pregnancy, of emergency scans, of late-night cries, but this was the first real confirmation. And now, it was laid bare, in a whisper, in a prayer. Not for fame. Not for attention. Just out of the sheer weight of trying to carry it alone. Fan reactions. This wasn't just love, it was her life. The internet exploded. Not just with sadness, but outrage. Thousands began demanding answers from Shu Kai's team. Why had he disappeared? Why had he left her, especially if he knew she was in such a fragile state? But others offered a more painful theory: he didn't know. One post went viral, reading, "Maybe Shu Kai doesn't know about the baby scare. Maybe he doesn't know how many nights she sat alone in that hospital room, bleeding and terrified. And maybe, just maybe, he doesn't think he's worthy of coming back." Another user wrote, "This wasn't a breakup. This was an abandonment she never recovered from. The forgotten moment, the chapel door that never opened." What many missed, hidden at the very end of the leaked footage, was the faintest of sounds, a doorknob rattle. It only lasted a second. But when slowed down, viewers could clearly see the chapel door handle move. Someone had been standing there, watching, listening, and then walked away. Security logs later confirmed it. At exactly 5:21 a.m., 4 minutes after Songyun began her prayer, someone accessed the corridor outside the chapel. The identity wasn't revealed, but a nurse later told fans. There was a man. He was standing at the end of the hallway. I remember his shoes were soaked, like he'd been standing outside in the rain for a long time. He looked wrecked. Was it Shu Kai? The internet thinks so. Back in her room, the prayer that didn't end. After leaving the chapel, Tan Songyun didn't return to sleep. Instead, she went straight to her window, still in her gown, still barefoot. She sat cross-legged on the sofa, facing the door, as if expecting someone. Her 4-line still dangled from her wrist. The nurse who checked on her at 6:10 a.m. recalled. She didn't say anything. She was just staring at the door. Her eyes were dry, but her hands were shaking like leaves. It wasn't grief anymore. It was a kind of waiting I've only seen in women who still have hope left. And then, the nurse said something that shattered everyone reading. She looked at me and asked, "If I stay awake long enough, do you think he'll come back before I close my eyes?" Someone give her the closure she deserves. One of the top posts of the day came from a C Entertainment journalist who wrote, "We've seen actresses cry in movies. But this was real. She didn't cry for cameras. She cried for someone she still believed in, someone who abandoned her when she needed him most. Someone who might be hurting too. But for once, can we stop focusing on his pain and talk about hers?" Tan Songyun deserves more than unanswered prayers and hallway shadows. She deserves a response. The video now has over 84 million views. People aren't just watching. They're waiting too.